welcome back everyone to MHVR Bytes. I'm Dr. Adam Baldowski.
And I'm Dr. Jessica Stone. And we are so excited. We have Dr. Rachel Altvater here with us today.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing fantastic. I'm stoked to be here to talk more with both of you and just sprinkling some love and excitement and innovation for all who are chiming in.
It's kind of funny because we know each other well. We've been all meeting together for months and months and months on end for our MHVR group. And of course, you and I know each other well. So like it's we're being formal. Oh, okay. We have to behave.
Thank you for the reminder.
Behave. What is that about?
Having
No.
fun.
Yeah.
Everyone listening wants to have a little bit of fun.
Well, I know in your work, Rachel, that you're no stranger to fun, and you do a lot of play therapy, and you have your book out. And I'm curious how you came to be a part of MHVR and using VR. Your experience with VR as a therapist.
Yeah, I would say my starting point was my dissertation in my doctoral program. I was mindlessly scrolling through social media one day. I actually had already decided I was going to do something else with my dissertation at that time and was just mindlessly scrolling, saw a post of a parent who was my age at the time expressing excitement that her child was playing with toys, like traditional toys, I call them, blocks, dinosaurs, something along those lines, like tangible toys. I was so excited about it. And I thought, what? This is what kids play with, right? I was learning about play therapy at the time, and all of my training was on the traditional play therapy methods of tangible toys that you have in an in-person play space. And just a light bulb went off in my head of how does the technological era, this digital age, impact play? And how is this going to impact play therapy long term and child mental health treatment long term? So I shifted my dissertation topic. I was interested in looking into how professionals were incorporating technology into sessions. And I have permission to share this. This is how I met Dr. Stone, because Dr. Stone was one of my participants. For any ethics police that are listening, I've already received permission, and she's present and can confirm that it is okay that I share that information, because
Yes,
confidentiality is important for research participants as well. But that's how I met Dr. Stone, and honestly, her interview sparked such an inner passion, more than she's ever going to know. I know I've expressed this in multiple ways to her. It just totally changed the trajectory of my entire career. And I just fell in love with digital technologies in the play space and completed my dissertation research, met with Dr. Stone at a conference that I was presenting a poster for the research. She was showcasing the virtual sand tray app, and we connected, and I viewed her as a great mentor at the time. And she said, let's do training together. I said, yeah. She said, no, I'm serious. I always remember that. I said, no, I am too. And from then, we just started collaborating a bunch to try to increase comfort and awareness and provide guidance and any standards or training possible for the field. Now, this was pre-COVID. My dissertation, I defended in 2016, so I was collecting research and working on it like 2015-ish, 2014. Once the pandemic hit, then we kind of ventured more into this space as a field, this space meaning the digital space as a whole. And I think it was during the pandemic that, Jessica, you had introduced VR to me. And I think it was, I don't know if it was.
it was. Because remember, I was so jealous because you ordered your headset and it came the same day. You're like, I'm going to get a headset.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I totally remember that because we went to, I don't know if I can use store names. We went to Target that day. Like we went that day. I totally remember that now. Yeah. And oh, so cool. So yeah, you were the introduction to VR for me. After we'd already been venturing into a lot of the digital realm for play therapy treatment. Yeah. So that's where it started. And then we met in VR to explore the space, and here we are. It's just continued to transform. So my key to all things is Dr. Stone.
Well, not all things, but it
All
has been
things,
quite a journey for sure.
everything in my life. No, all the things in my career, though, truly. I mean, where I am now, for sure. And I'm honored to work alongside you and to continue to contribute to the wealth of knowledge that is ever growing and expanding.
So one of the things I did this week, and we're recording this here in October, and we're launching our episodes in a couple of months. That way, we're not always playing catch up and in the recordings. But so at the moment, it's actually October, and I just did an interview with Wiley yesterday about our MHVR book, so that when it launches in January, which is probably closer to when this will air,
So get
then
the book now.
right. So now I should. Um, but in that, the excitement about the book within Wiley is really fantastic, and your chapter in that book is something I was hoping we could talk a little bit about here during our time in the podcast, because it's human connection. And we've had, as a group, as a field, academically, research wise, I mean, there's so much conversation about whether or not people can be connected through digital means. And then in this case, in particular, in VR, a lot of people who don't really understand a lot about VR can't fathom how you can have a headset on your face, occluding your view of the physical world, and feel connected with someone else. And so I'm curious what that conjures up in you, and tying back to what you let us all know about in your chapter for the book.
My short answer is all the things. It conjures up all the things. No, I like to joke, but honestly, I learned so much as I was writing the chapter. I had a certain vision, just recognition of how important the digital realm really is for people to connect. Like, this is a space that people truly are connecting, and it's not being recognized by those who are outside the screen. And so I definitely had a lot of knowledge and information to share. When I was looking more into the research, I had some additional insights that I gleaned from that research that I would love to highlight first. I noticed a shift in the research. So I honestly don't remember the time frame, but we're going to say probably a decade or longer ago, when a lot of the beginnings of the research began to emerge. And I do want to give the caveat, I know research has been ever growing and expanding in this area as well. I guess I should clarify where there's more of a burst in technology-based research in recent years, right? So if I say, like, it's starting to emerge like a little bit more than 10 years ago, there I am confident are more than, like,
Yeah.
there's further lengths of time where there's research, right? So just take what I'm saying with a slight grain of salt. But the research that I was starting to look into regarding connection and social relationships specifically, let's say a little bit like around a decade-ish ago, was expressing how detrimental technology was, and namely VR, for the research studies that I was looking at, but technology as a whole was a detriment to social relationships, because a lot of people seemingly were viewing things from their lens. And what I mean by that is, we view the world through our culture, through our experiences, through our values, norms, like the things that we grew up with, right? Like, that's how we learn about the world. That's how we learn about ourselves. That's how we operate. So when people are viewing something new from their lens, they're viewing it from their culture, from their understanding. So a lot of people were saying, when I was younger, we would go play outside until the street lights turned on. And, people, we would connect with our friends after school. And now kids just come home and they're just going on the screens and they're not connecting with their friends like we used to. So the view then became they're not doing things, they meaning children specifically, who were like the focus of a lot of the research that I was looking at. They're not doing things the same way we're doing it and then labeling it as there's a detrimental impact of technology here, or this is wrong or bad, or they're lacking in this area, right? So I want to give the caveat of the perspective, of the viewpoint. So a lot of the earlier research that I was looking at a decade-ish ago was saying how technology, namely VR, was actually detrimental to social relationships. And then some of the more recent research was saying that that wasn't the case. And I was like, how come this grouping of research around this time is saying this certain thing, and this grouping of research around this certain time is saying this other thing? I think we're so quick to look at a collection of research, or just a research article, and think that that is fact. Even professionals who are well aware of the importance of really dissecting research, when our own perspectives are integrated into the research or into something that we are doing or contemplating doing, it's going to skew the understanding. It's going to skew the direction of the results. So let me explain a little bit more with what was actually going on in the research. 10-ish or so years ago, a lot of the research was adults being interviewed about kids. So they are the people who are looking at the people who are looking at a black mirror, right? Like, from an outsider's perspective, you're watching someone staring at a black mirror, right? Like, if you really look at it with it off, like, you're literally only seeing the person's reflection back, who's looking at the screen. Of course that looks isolating. Of course it looks like they're not doing anything, because they, from that lens, from that third person perspective, they are just staring at a blank screen. However, for the person who's actually in the digital realm, there is so much going on. But I noticed a lot of the research wasn't actually interviewing the children or the people who were on the screens and what they were doing. However, more of the research in later years, the more recent research, is actually interviewing or looking at those who are on screens. They're not looking at that third person perspective. So we don't realize this, though, when we're looking at the research. We say, here's a research article, I'm going to cite it. VR technology is detrimental and it's bad, and here's a research article to prove that. And a lot of times we inadvertently engage in confirmation bias. So we look for things that pertain to what we think, right? It's the manner in which we search, the words that we choose. We're going to have our perspective flavored into what we're looking up. Also, targeted ads, right? So if we are spending a lot of time and energy in one particular area of technology, that's going to be what's inundating us. I was noticing a lot during the pandemic and before the pandemic, there were all of these articles, technology is the worst, VR is terrible. And they were blog posts. They weren't even research articles. So I digress. I just want to really have people become a bit more better consumers of the research and really dissect what you're looking into. I wouldn't have realized that very clear shift had I not delved a bit deeper into the why. What were the researchers actually looking at? What is the researcher's opinion, right? Like, in research, we really are taught and encouraged to not influence a direction of the research because of our own opinions. Even in my dissertation, I had to have a whole section where I reflected on my personal thoughts and beliefs and how that could impact my research. So anyways, a lot more than maybe some of you want to hear, but it's just so important to recognize that there's so much more than we realize in this space. And I'm glad that a lot more of the research and the people who are really in the virtual spaces are meeting people in those spaces and gaining more insight and knowledge. I have one more thing to say, and then of course I want to see if there's anything that you both have to say about any of that. But something that was super cool, one of the articles I found was focused on something called interbrain synchronization. And ultimately that's where two people's brains sync up, or like, let's say all three of us here, all of our brains are syncing up. So there was a study, and the details are slightly fuzzy, but if anyone's interested, happy to send it to you. But there were two people working on a task simultaneously in VR, but in different places. They weren't physically in the same place, but in VR, they were in the same place. And they both were working on a collective task, but doing different things. And I actually can't remember now if they were even able to talk. I don't remember that specific, but there was some physical distance from them. And there were EEG probes in their brain, and the researchers saw that the brain waves were syncing up while they were engaging in this activity together. So on a neurobiological level, there are connections happening in these spaces, and it's so cool how
Yes.
research is advancing, and our understanding of the genuine connections and capabilities in these spaces are also enhancing.
That's interesting because I'm thinking back to my own dissertation. I didn't do it on VR, but I did do virtual spaces and how people make connections through YouTube after a tragic event. And so they would watch certain videos or reaction videos and through the comments and find camaraderie with one another, and this, based on this shared tragedy experience. And my mentor at the time, her whole field of study was on violence in video games, and so she was having to fight against the that perception of violent video games creates violence, and she was kind of at that forefront of like, no, it doesn't. Like it's here's, I mean, obviously more detailed than that, but it was
that was it. That was her whole dissertation.
Just, no, don't do it. No. Here's a blog post. You're good.
Exactly.
Right.
Precisely.
But that idea of that human connection, and I remember Jessica, you talking in an earlier episode about how you were in space with somebody and they were lower than you, like a little shorter than you, and so when you look down, like you made eye contact, the virtual, and that there was like that feeling of connection.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it makes me think, I think something that researchers miss is, and this seems so simple to me, but like what's the first thing people do when they put on a VR headset and enter a space? Right? They're in awe of this world that they're in. And so of course it's going to seem isolating if you're just watching somebody without seeing what they're looking at. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
well, and even if it's cast, even if you're watching on another screen what someone is seeing in there, I think it's a middle ground. It's not, you can see that, oh, that's what they're looking at, that's what they're interacting with, that's whatever, but it's not the same as when you put the headset on and you're in this multi-sensory experience, and then you add on top of it with other people. And Rachel actually was there that night that I had that interaction. She wasn't in that interaction. It was when we went into the haunted house.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Fiona and I were in a hallway. You were somewhere else. I don't know why we were separated, but I was actually like nervous. I was scared because we were kind of lost. I know that's a shock. Fiona calls herself the lost friend. So I was trying to assist her to get out of the space, but then it was also a haunted house. So you never know whichever door you're going to go in, what's going to happen, what you're going to experience. So I was a little bit nervous. And when we made eye contact in that hallway, I felt I'm not alone. We are together in this experience. And we just weren't in the same physical space, but we all had experiences like that, I think, in that haunted house. And then in many other, we have some really fun pictures of us all in VR. The coffee bar comes to mind in Engage VR when we were playing around and being goofy in there. And then
the library.
The library, yep, absolutely. That was fun. I really like going into that library. And then,
I
and
think in one of
then,
your trainings, the group that I was a part of, I think we did like a big selfie
yeah,
as a
in alt space, yeah, we
yeah.
did a big selfie, and so it's like just like you would do after any traditional
Mhm.
training. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, people take a big group picture, right? And so we did that. So um, I'm glad to have the conversation about research. I know that I've shared with you before, Rachel, that in my digital play therapy book, I wrote a chapter about research, and I shared with an esteemed friend and colleague that I was writing it, and she point blank said, "Nobody's going to read that." And I said, "But I want them to read that, and they need to read that, because
Yeah.
understanding about research and confirmation bias, and even though we are taught both in doing our own research and also in evaluating research, we're taught the ideas of being as objective as humanly possible. And as you said, you had to write up the section that was exploring your own thoughts and biases and beliefs and all that kind of stuff. Even the setup, even the question that you, the research question, you're already starting from you have to start
Yes.
somewhere. You have to start from a place, and the way you define your variables and what variables you even pick and what they might mean, all of it has in it components of the view, the belief system, the whatever of the researcher. I mean, there's just, we're human beings. It's just going to happen. So the
Yeah.
more we understand that about each research article, then the better we can critically analyze and evaluate it. And as you also mentioned and pointed out, also the time frame when it was done, because there could have been people who wanted to do research in a different direction about that topic, but that it was rejected. And there has been a very, very long history of the file drawer effect of things just going right into the, that weren't accepted, that weren't published. Now it's changing because there's so many other open um, publishing possibilities that we didn't have before. And I also want to say, I'm so jealous of both of you, because when I was doing my dissertation, when I started it, home internet wasn't even a thing.
Because
So
you
I
were
didn't,
outside playing till the street lights went out.
I was in graduate school, so I don't think I was doing that, but
Oh my
but
gosh.
I didn't get to do the fun research about these kinds of things that you guys did. So I'm glad for you and sad for me that we didn't have that then. But it's been a very interesting journey to watch it, and to watch, just the flow of things. Even the time when you interviewed me for your dissertation, um, even that was very exciting for me, because I was like, oh my gosh, somebody's actually doing this. This needs to be done. Like,
Yeah.
someone reached out to me and said, you should talk to this person. I was like, yes, I'm absolutely going to talk to this person, because I'm excited about this now becoming something people are talking about.
Well, you were on a lone island.
Felt that way for sure.
I mean, and I don't want to discredit or discount anybody out there who has been actively working in this field for a long time, right? Like
Yes.
and within the field of play therapy specifically, right? You are the founder of digital play therapy. You are the forerunner in the field of play therapy specifically, but of course, other areas of psychology in digital mental health and incorporating VR into therapy. I want to quickly make a comment about the research, which I know isn't a fun topic for some people, right? And I get it, right? It's like, you're like, why are you talking about research again? I know, just bear with me, okay? We will get through this. But ultimately, in order for approaches to be deemed evidence-based, which is a requirement really within the field, the research needs to be addressed. And research in this area is essential. So
Mm-hmm.
I think when there are opinions that are
inhibiting the actual research, and in both ends, pro and against different digital technologies, VR, whatever it may be. We need to have a nice collection of literature to help inform our practice, to help us recognize the areas in which we need to grow, the areas that are strong and solid. If someone reads something and it matches their opinion, then that shuts off sometimes the ability for them to continue to grow. Oh no, I saw this and it's not helpful. It's detriment to social relationships. I'm not doing it. And it completely shuts the possibility. And I just think how much that is a huge detriment to our clients.
Mm-hmm. That makes me think, because I'm thinking about some of my clients right now, and I've seen this in the Facebook groups with other therapists, and there is a mixed reaction to like TikTok and digital technologies and gaming and VR and all of that, and where with my teens and things, I see they're making a lot of connections, right? Most of their friends, it seems, are now online, and they're struggling a little more with in person. I don't know that that's related to the digital part of it. That might be more of a pandemic thing. Uh, but there is still a lot of resistance to the digital side, especially from professionals. So I'm curious, what,
Yeah.
from a human connection perspective, can you talk a little bit about what you've seen with clients, or with maybe not, or just in the research uh, of the benefit, or has it been detrimental? Like, what have you found?
Yeah, I will definitely answer the question. I have a thought that I want to throw out there first, because I'm not sure who's listening and how you feel, and I think it's important for us to pay attention to that first. As we're listening to anecdotes of different experiences, our thoughts, feelings, and experiences are inevitably going to impact the treatment, our connection in this space. If this is not something that we feel comfortable with, it's going to take the work in a different direction. In my dissertation research, there was a topic of toy gun in a playroom, and how some clinicians are very uncomfortable with having any type of toy gun in the playroom. And if a child picks it up and starts to play with it, then they might have their own reaction, right? Having a visceral reaction, something might show up on their face inadvertently. The child's going to pick up on that as a reflection of them. Children are egocentric, developmentally speaking. Humans are, let's be real. If we're thinking from a developmental standpoint, children are egocentric. So when things occur around them, they feel like they are to blame. They feel like they have to take responsibility. So I bring all this up because I could share all of the things I'm seeing, and I absolutely believe in it wholeheartedly. This is the way of the future and present. And I think it's important for all of us to work together to set standards. It's what MHVR is here for, to set standards and guidelines and create parameters and protections for using these spaces, being in these spaces. If we have a certain perspective about it, it's going to influence what you hear. It's going to influence what you do. And it's going to influence how you participate in the process. And I mean the process as a whole in helping the field move in that direction, this inevitable direction. So now I'll actually answer your question. It has been immensely helpful. My clients, I had a client that I worked with for a while in person, and they wanted to be in VR every single session. They did not talk openly with me about things that were going on in their life. It took a long time for us to establish rapport, and I have some thoughts that maybe there were some limit testing to see if I was a trustworthy person. That's just how I conceptualized it. I will give the caveat that I'm able to talk about this, but I will still maintain confidentiality, so I'll keep it brief. They were really struggling with social relationships, interactions at school. We jumped into Cosmonia's High, which is a game app, whatever it's considered, in VR, both. And it's all about chaos and disarray occurring in this galaxy high school. And the person who is, I guess it's first person, so the person who is the
the one moving about the space, which was my client, can do a variety of different tasks, can quite literally put out fires, can build relationships. I love the inclusivity in the game. My client really felt seen and heard based on the diversity that was incorporated into the game, and was able to work through social relationships, was talking to me about their feelings about some of the characters, absolutely paralleled quote real world, right? VR is real world. I just want to say that, but off the screen world. Um, it was such a insightful glimpse into their experiences, specifically at school and specifically with their social relationships, without them saying a word, without me asking a question. And they were able to work through a lot in this space. And when they were having different feelings, that there's things you can throw, they would throw things, they would mix things up, they could start fires. They were able to really work through and get, quote, messy in this digital space. And it was protected, and it didn't have to be literally or figuratively cleaned up. And they were able to just be who they were amongst other characters who were free to be who they are too. It was so helpful and healing for them, it seems to be. And there were other games and apps that we entered into in VR and just in other digital spaces. It's so powerful. Play in general is so powerful. Like, play really is the root of child therapy. I'm doing more, like looking into that a little bit more right now too. And the first child therapists were child analysts. They incorporated play in their sessions. So even like the forerunners in child therapy incorporated play. So they know, developmentally speaking, how relevant it is. So if we're thinking about play and how developmentally appropriate it is for children, then being able to add the digital realm, which children are digital natives. We are in the digital era. This is how they're playing. So to incorporate play, which from the core of child therapy, play is important. And now we're incorporating this cultural component, meeting kids where they are in this time and space. It is immensely helpful. It's hard for a lot of people to conceptualize play in the digital space if back in the day, they didn't learn to play that way. And so it's easy to say, if a child is looking at YouTube, they're just on the screen, they need to get off the screen. They're playing. It's a modern method of play, but we don't always know. So with how this is impactful in therapy, kids are able to meet us, or I guess really we meet them. That's a much better way to say it. We meet them in their space of comfort and safety and familiarity and mastery and control and developmental appropriateness. And it's such a powerful space.
Yeah,
I
and
would
I think
extend that out to other age groups as well. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
I know we talk about that a lot, and people are like, particularly in the play therapy world, play therapy with adults and whatnot.
Mhm.
It's something that's said and through the lifespan, and
Yeah.
Dr. Cadison has written a few books on that and all of that. But I don't think we really incorporate that as a society and even as a field in as much as I think is valuable, because I believe strongly that we have an importance of play throughout our lives. And there are certainly people who do that more than others. But it shows up in different ways. Play and being playful shows up differently throughout our developmental stages of our life. But we're still even people who go and they play golf once a week. I mean, it's literally in the term play. You're going to play golf.
Well,
Yeah.
How is
That's-
that not play?
Right.
that's part of what I do as a geek therapist is I play games with my clients. We do tabletop role playing games, and one of my clients loves to do I Am Cat in VR. And wreak havoc as a cat.
That's
You've
fun.
you've
haven't
never
heard of
played
it.
I Am Cat. It is a fun game.
No. Yeah, I need to check that out.
Yeah, they had it on sale recently too. So hopefully, maybe it's still in October
Yeah.
anyway. Maybe not January.
But yeah, that idea of play is I think we forget as adults that how important play is. I went to visit my parents over Christmas, and we went to the park, and I sat on a swing set and swung. And I was like, wow, this is fun. I should do this more often. It was a really great experience. I do kind of want to clear something up. And I hope I didn't come across this way. Like I'm not trying to put down people who in our field who are resistant to it. I think
Same.
this is where that research is
Yeah.
so important, because I think there's also sometimes a disconnect of what it's capable of. Is it just a fad? And kind of really and I think that's true for everything, right? That digital citizenship and just educating what's possible. And that's really all I was going for the.
I love that you say that. It's so important because yeah, my intention is there is room here for everyone, even if you're just listening curiously. Thank you for being here to listen and just to have an openness and willingness to learn. And if you don't want to incorporate something in your session, just like I was talking about with the toy gun, don't. Or you can incorporate it in ways that are comfortable for you and your practice and your theoretical framework. Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many different methods to therapy and they all can be just as effective as one another. It's dependent upon your style as a clinician and then your client's needs and finding a good balance. So yeah, I love that you did say that because I think it is important that everyone does feel heard and understood and doesn't feel like they are an outsider if they're not using this. Because also thinking like 10, 15 years ago, like we feel like outsiders trying to do something different too. And like we don't want that. We want there to be room for everyone and everything that makes sense for our collective work together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I've said that for a long time. There's room for everybody at the table. And I really genuinely, because I put so much thought into this. I've had a lot of people say things to me over the years, and I've heard a lot of different opinions. I really do think that for some people, when they're thinking about this professionally, so I'm not, I certainly our personal views come into play, no matter what, because again,
Inevitably. Yeah.
right, we're human, right?
Yeah.
We have our perspective, which we've said that word a billion times here today, and is, as a plug, the title of your book. So,
Yes.
and all about perspective. But I think that for a group of people, and from the professional lens, they want to make sure that they're doing the right thing by their clients. And when there has been so much negative press and views of there being detriment to things that are digital, I can understand why people would be leery. And it goes back to not wanting to do any harm. And I understand that.
Sure. Yep.
And I respect that. And I have come from the same lens. Even if anybody has ever read, I'm not going to say it now because we're running out of time, but like my story as the chicken lady, like how I even entered into all of this was in a position of, I don't need that in my life. My kids don't need that in their lives. I don't need a cell phone. I don't need to be that connected with anybody. I came from those places. And then when I started to see the value, I started to see what was happening with my own children. I started to hear and pay attention on a different level to my clients. I thought, I need to learn a lot more about this. There's something here that I am not familiar with, that I am not being open to, and I need to do that. And that started the whole deep dive into what is this really about? What are the things that are of concern? What are the things that have great power? And I get excited about a lot of it, as you know. Immersive technologies is particularly exciting to me because I think we are really on the cusp of unlocking so many different things to learn about humans, human nature, interactions, how we learn, how we process, how our brains work. That combined with things that are happening in AI. I mean, there's a lot happening that I think if I'm still alive in 20 years, I can't wait to look back and say, wow, look at all that was happening then. And we were right there in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Well, and look at, I mean, if we take telehealth, right? Like, what year is it? 2024. You know, in 2020 when COVID hit, I
Where
mean,
are we?
the entire industry shifted, and a lot of things opened up that might not. I know, like with insurance and stuff, there were a lot of questions about like how many sessions can I do via telehealth, and will they even approve it? And then it's suddenly like everything got flipped on its head,
Yeah.
and people were now able to have access to clinicians that they may not have been able to see previously. And I can see how VR can do that. I mean, I would love the idea for students one day. I mean, I personally love the in person experience, but I could also see a classroom of people putting those glasses on and looking like they're in the classroom together. But from a
Mhm.
cost perspective, they don't have to move across the state or country.
Absolutely. I mean, I taught a class. I'll call it a class. Held a class. I don't even know. I don't know how to categorize it. We were all in VR and we were learning things, and there were presentations, and we had, stadium seating, and people had their emojis going off on their heads when they were clapping, or when the people were sitting in clumps like together. I mean, it looked, from a presenter's perspective, looking out at the audience, it looked like it would look if we were in an in-person stadium seating situation. It's funny because even someone takes their headset off, and their avatar would be like, it's going over. And it'd be like the person who fell asleep in class. Like it still had the same feel to it. People could raise their hands. They could ask questions. It's funny because I have felt, and I'm sure, Rachel, you've heard me say this before, but I actually feel that I like the interaction teaching a course in VR more than I like teaching a course in Zoom, because I feel like there's so much more interaction and so
Yeah.
much more representation of the whole person than there is. Having said that, though, I have learned. I know for me, the way that I learn, I'm fidgety. I have to do more than one thing at a time. All that kind of stuff. I do like being in the same physical space with people, and I also really appreciate a lot of things that are about the 2D version of sitting in a course as well. I like to be able, on a break, to go put some laundry in, and then in the next break, move the laundry over. Like, my life is hectic. So to have the ability to fit things in and not have to fly somewhere and take days and all that kind of stuff is really great too. So I think what a lot of that is it's so great to have options.
Yeah.
And it's so great to have the ability to find like-minded people, to find situations that can challenge us, to find trainings that we might not be able to go to or give otherwise. I find doctors from some other place in the world that has a specialty that now we don't have to fly all that way, but we can see, speak this way. The accessibility that is opened up for us in the last few years as a part of more people's day-to-day life. I know the technology's been around for a long time, but it hasn't been part of our day-to-day lives until the last however many years, 5 years or so. And I think accessibility is my number one excitement when it comes to the possibilities that we now have and will continue to develop.
And to bring it back to the chapter, everything you're describing sounds like connection,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
knowing ourselves and knowing other people in a way that allows us to connect in ways that maybe we wouldn't have been able to otherwise, because we wouldn't have had access to those people. I mean, I personally live in the middle of nowhere, and so there are even specialties. Like, there are doctors that come from a major city once or twice a month to come here to provide services for people, because we don't have those specialties anywhere near us.
Wow.
Like, the idea that we could do that via telehealth and have access to people on more than well, we can see you in 2027 because we're booked until then because they only come once a month. Like, I know that to a lot of people listening, that sounds ridiculous. How is that happening in 2024? But it is. It's huge.
Yeah. I will say too, even you had mentioned when you, me, and Fiona went into VR together just to have fun. All three of us live in different time zones.
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to be physically present and see one another. And in the games or apps that have the haptic responses, then we can touch one another, right? And actually feel the vibration. It's so cool. One thing I wanted to mention in relation to what you were talking about, Jessica, with like looking back in 20 years and where things are right now, I really feel like this is also a cognitive evolution. Now, I can't speak to the research, like the neuro research. Okay, so I'm speaking out of turn slightly. I'm not talking as an expert in that way. This is just my own postulations right now. Us as a species continue to evolve. We evolve through time, depending on what our needs are, what's present in our environment. And the digital era has brought about different interactions, right? Quicker bursts of information or whatever it may be. And I know that there is a lot of concern with how this is impacting the brain, how this is impacting brain development, how this is impacting people. Absolutely worth continuing to pay attention to, research, figure out what if this is an evolution? What if this is another shift in our collective? Just want to put that out there. I'm curious about it. I'm curious in 10 years, 20 years, what additional research is going to come out about the brain. And is it a bad thing? Maybe. Is it not a bad thing? Maybe. Is it both? Maybe. Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. However, I feel like if there are new things introduced to our collective, we're going to evolve around it. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. And I know evolution and change is scary and oftentimes is rooted in moral panic and a concern that things are going to be bad and dangerous and different, because anxiety of the familiar is less anxiety provoking than anxiety of the unfamiliar. It is safer to remain in a space of familiarity and comfort, even if it's not comfortable, because it is more comfortable than stepping into complete unknown. And I understand the fears of uncharted territory. I personally love to be on the front end of uncharted territory to help explore, figure it out, and then guide and lead others through. And I think it'd be really great for anyone listening who feels like that resonates with you, reach out to us, because we are seeking like-minded people to be a part of MHVR with us and help be on the forefront of all of this so we can learn more and do better for our collective. And for those of you who are listening and are just curious and nervous, it's okay. Stay in that space, right? Like it's important to follow where you are, to listen to your thoughts and feelings, to be true to you. Authenticity is huge for me. Be authentic and genuine with yourself. And if you're somewhere in the middle, great. Like I'm just glad everyone is here who has taken the time to listen, and just thank you truly for everything that you all do and all your willingness to be present here.
Well, thank you for closing up the podcast.
Right. I was gonna say I don't think we have anywhere to go from there.
It felt like just a natural, I realized it just feels like a little natural goodbye. Goodbye for now.
I just wrote if I
Yeah,
just real quick on that the topic. At the start of the pandemic, a documentary came out called The Social Dilemma. That is really good. It's about how social media was created, and the connection that I'm making is in it. They talked about how we created this material. We had these great ideas. We wanted to do so much for the world. We saw this positive things. We never thought of the other side of the coin, and which is fine, right? I think that's kind of where I'm seeing some of this with VR is like there's a lot of great things, and like you were saying, like is it good? Maybe. Is it bad? Maybe.
Yeah,
And
a little bit of both,
but
a little bit of all.
we have to be able to find those things and understand them. And there are two sides to a coin with all of this, and understanding it, like you were, how do we use it? How do we ethically grow with it?
Absolutely. And it's not necessarily the systems although that could sometimes be the case, it's the way that people are navigating these systems. It's the way that people are using them. And some people have ill intent, unfortunately. That's just the reality of human nature. And some are really wanting to help expand and grow. So I think it's also easy to blame the systems, which sometimes are the issue. Okay, I acknowledge that. But if we're thinking about technological systems, it might not be that the system itself is a concern. It's the way that people are navigating it. And that's where the quote bad and quote good might start to arise.
Which is all the more reason why being open to learning more, thinking about it, asking questions, that to me is fundamental, so that we can.
Yes.
Now, I know.
Full circle. We're back again. You're welcome, everyone.
How can people find you? How can people get a hold of you? My dog's moving everything next to me. How can people find you?
I have one beautiful location where you can access me a bunch of different ways. Beacons. It's like a link tree. I think link tree tends to be a little bit more familiar, but Beacons, beacons.ai/DocVater with a T. And you can access me a bunch of different ways there. That's my one-stop shop for all the things sparkly me.
Lovely. That sounds great.
And as we said earlier, you do have a book out called Perspective. So
Yeah.
Since this is coming out in January, add both the MHVR book and Perspective to your cart.
Yes. All right. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. This was so lovely. Thanks for everyone for joining.
This episode was brought to you by MHVR in partnership with the American Medical Extended Reality Association.